Hello, and welcome back to the Blue Shadow Podcast. Today we're going to talk about the most recent 2 episodes of The Bad Batch, and we are also going to discuss what we would potentially like to see if we got a Star Wars What If series similar to Marvel. Just on the topic of The Bad Batch, before we talk about our usual intro, I'm sad.
You're Joey, but yes.
Bad Batch makes me sad, and I think it's only going to get worse.
As we knew it would. We talked about that last week, that we think this is the beginning of the end.
The Harbinger.
And I think...
We've been harbinged.
We have been.
Anyway.
We've been hit in a couple directions.
Children torture, really. Anyway, Dan, what have you been reading, watching, listening to this week?
I'm still powering through West Wing with my girlfriend. We are in the middle of season 3 right now. Great show. If you have HBO Max, or now Max, highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. If you like shows like House of Cards or Veep, it's similar to that without all the disgusting feeling that you get from House of Cards. But it's, again, great show. They're both great shows. If you like one, you'll like the other.
Any playing?
No.
That's nonsense. We've just been playing Marvel Snap. We both got Red Hulk, a new card released in Marvel Snap this week. Fantastic.
I'm climbing. I've been playing a lockdown deck, which has been doing me wonders. And I played about 40 minutes of Helldivers this week. So, how about you?
I've been a little more limited on the playing this week, but still chugging through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, a game that I feel like is not going to end. But that's good, because I'm enjoying it. I also am, as I've been mentioning, my wife and I are watching X-Men, the animated series, and we're actually firmly in the middle of season 3, much like you with West Wing.
Nice.
And it's been really good. I've noticed, it came out in, the early 90s to the late 90s, and, I'm now 3 seasons in starting to see, a jump in animation quality a little bit. It's a little smoother, a little crisper. It's kind of cool to watch, it evolve.
Yeah. I totally agree. And watching West Wing, they have storylines that kind of seemed outlandish at the time, just a tad. But in the year of 2024, they came true. That's
kind of terrifying. There's a lot of stuff like that with X-Men, where it's X-Men is a call for people to be inclusive and stuff, because it's persecuting against the mutants and being mutant racist. It's alarming how relevant that still is today.
Yeah, and just a non-spoiler example, if you want to watch West Wing, was a coup in Haiti.
Oh, wow. That's actually happening right now.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I know. Really freaky. Anyway,
before we delve into the news segment of Blue Shadow, which is not something we currently intend on doing.
Not yet.
Not the
maybe not at all. However,
we call it Dan Shadow.
You live in that every day.
Oh my God. Anyway, let's, Dan, talk about Bad Batch Season 3, Episodes 10 and 11. The first is titled Identity Crisis, and the second is titled Point of No Return. Let's start by going through Identity Crisis.
Oh, first and foremost, so good.
So good. And both of them.
Last week we talked about Emery. And what we kind of said, what's up with her? They just left her.
And we haven't seen Hemlock. We haven't seen Emery.
And now we got Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Okay.
It was a great movie, too.
Haven't seen it yet.
You should. So, yes, this episode follows Emery as she is promoted to chief scientist.
Mm-hmm. And I felt very similar to the Crosshair episodes, when in the first 2 seasons where he was, by himself. Mm-hmm. And getting the peek behind enemy lines that helps you better understand it when we ultimately will get there with our main characters.
Rising. Speaking of Crosshair, I feel like she very closely mirrors Crosshair's journey. They're 2 clones who were in service to the Empire who start to work their way up. Mm-hmm. And we see this human side of them finally come out once they get more information.
Once they go around Omega.
Yeah, more
even though Emery's still a little cool. But yeah, we see Hemlock kind of working in this room, and he ends up having the discussion about Emery being promoted to chief scientist. Mm-hmm. Why do you think she wanted that? Do you think she cares about the project?
I think so. I think she cares about the project. However, she didn't know what she was working on.
No, not until they walk through the scary red hallway that Palpatine was walked through. Yeah, there must be a bunch of terrible things in that hallway, because we saw the very clearly Sith-inspired cloning chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this prison of children.
Yes.
How did you feel when you saw the children? Because I felt
Not
terrible.
good. Yeah, it didn't feel good. Felt, in fact, rather terrible.
And on the topic of children, we kind of glossed over where this episode began.
Yes.
With this very, very cute child exhibiting force sensitivity and this a-hole that reported the child to a Class 1 bounty hunter.
Yeah.
We'll kind of leave that be because we'll come back to it because it was... Normally you get excited to see Cad Bane. This was terrible. In an intentional way.
Oh, yeah. I think Cad Bane is romanticized a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And we often forget just what he is.
Garbage person.
And this week we got to see it.
Oh, my God. Yeah, no, he is a bad guy with the capital B.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we see Emery and Hemlock talking. Then we cut to the kidnapping with Cad Bane. So we can talk about that. There's not much to it, honestly. Like, what's he going to do? He can't fight this mother. He just stunned her.
Yeah.
Are you surprised he stunned her?
No.
Why do you say that?
Because as a bounty hunter, you still operate within some sort of code, some sort of laws. You're not necessarily a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Bounty hunting is regulated. He can't just walk in and shoot somebody who's not
who's
not the bounty.
and he wouldn't necessarily want to shoot the bounty anyway. But
right.
What did you think of Toto 360 as a nanny?
It was good.
It was kind of it lightened the mood a little. Like I felt terrible.
They had to do something.
And like the kid with his little doll, like or his or her. I don't know.
I think it's him.
I think like his little.
They said him.
Toy of himself. Oh, it hurt. I don't know. And then like him seeing his mom, like they didn't even close the little Grogu type pram.
No.
Oh my God. I again, this episode made me sick to my stomach, even more than the second one. But as we talked about, when Emery is taken into the room with the children, she kind of is already inadvertently starting to make connections with them. This one girl comes up to her and is like, asks her name and tries to be nice and friendly to her. But we do see this other kid. He's a Mary Allen. His name's Jax. We see him kind of looking shifty at Hemlock.
Mm-hmm.
And next time we come back to it, we start to see Jax try to escape.
Right.
Which did not work well for him. He was getting a little bold.
He was. I don't think he had a plan.
He didn't have a plan.
And we can't blame him. I wouldn't want to be locked in there.
We also kind of glossed over here why they have these children there.
Yes.
We get a quote that I want to bring up. This quote is from Hemlock. Emery asks, why children? Why do we have these children here? And he talks about them having high M count.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to, like, clone a Force user is essentially what... We finally get, like, a clear answer as to what's been implied. I'm going to say the quote, then we can kind of talk about it a little. Hemlock says, as you know, M count cannot be directly replicated from the source. However, Nala Se knew of another way, which is why she aided in Omega's escape. The young clone's blood is the only binder that's proven to be compatible with their DNA to recreate their M count levels. Now, as a scientist, I don't quite know what all that means, because it's not real. But as a Star Wars fan...
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So we know... I mean, we saw this with what I called the Wheel of Anxiety last week.
Yeah.
Omega's blood is passing the test. This is just what's happening. It's able to effectively recreate an M count, something that can't be done. And we ultimately know that, like in things like the Rise of Skywalker novelization, we know that this is something Palpatine's struggling with even into the era of the sequels. Like Rey's dad is technically a Palpatine clone that has no force sensitivity.
Right.
Which is like, it's all really connecting beautifully, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And it's highlighting the importance of Omega.
Yes.
So, with that, these force-sensitive children are here, and Hemlock also says a really scummy quote where he says something to the effect of, like, children can't resist, they don't know what's going on.
Yes, they're...
So terrible. He's such a good but terrible villain.
And then he even, going back to the names, Emery asked, what's yours? And that's when Hemlock stepped in and said, no. Don't form attachments to it.
The specimens. That's what he called them. The specimens.
SP32, SP54.
Yeah, oh my God. It's nasty. Again, it's still like...
You're supposed to feel nasty.
I watched it on Wednesday, and I still feel like I need to shower when I think about it.
And It's not the first time we've seen Force-sensitive kids.
Literally every animated show they do this.
Yeah.
Clone Wars had happened. Rebels had happened. Palpatine sucks.
No. Really?
Oh, man. It like this was like Andor level terror of the Empire. Yeah, no, it's rough. But we ultimately then cut to Emery talking to Nala Se.
Yeah.
Which is exciting because this is the first time we've seen Nala Se in a while as well.
Mm-hmm.
She's clearly doing okay. I'm surprised it didn't kill her. But I think
she's too important to kill.
She is. They need her knowledge.
Yes.
But they
just like Omega. Too important to kill.
Uh-huh. So she Nala Se essentially says, "So you know what this is about," more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And Emery's clearly shaken by this. I don't think she's very happy about it, and she draws a connection to herself.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Are you just going to throw them away?" What did she say? Like wanted to do with, like you did with me?
Yeah. Also, it just gives more questions about Emery's background.
That's what I want to know. Is what is she? What's her connection to Omega? Is she like an Omega predecessor?
She'd have to be.
And I believe she has to be accelerated in her age. Like, it wouldn't be possible with the timeline for her to be.
Yeah.
Like, she would be like Omega Boba Fett's age, not clearly like Dr. Carr. She had to have get some sort of advanced degree for that.
I don't know how that works in the Empire.
And I could tell you from firsthand experience, getting a PhD, if that's what it is, long time.
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
You know, you're indirectly connected enough to know it's miserably long. Anyway, I didn't say that on recording. But I think this is teeing us up very well to want us to learn more about her backstory. And I think we're ultimately going to get it because they're starting to, like, you know, give us little breadcrumbs.
Yes.
And then we cut to something that I thought was exciting in this episode. Hemlock talking to Tarkin.
That was a good one.
And it really highlights what Tarkin, you know, great character. I really don't think he's so petty. Yes. He has no clue what's going on. And he says, this better deliver the effective results. He doesn't even know what the results are.
Right. And Tarkin is acting like he's the number 2 guy in the galaxy.
As he always does.
He's a governor.
Uh-huh.
One of multiple governors.
And I think it kind of highlights how he'll, like, stab his back up to, like, it's the same way he talks to Krennic in Rogue One. Mm-hmm. He will happily stand on their shoulders to raise himself forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was very evident in the asking about the money. Mm-hmm. And Tarkin's like, well, what do you need it for? And Hemlock's like, you don't need to know that.
I think Tarkin just wanted to know.
I think Tarkin...
He's kind of petty.
I think he wants to know. I think he's just nosy. Wants to know what his competitors are up to.
Yeah.
And Hemlock knows. Hemlock was even kind of even a smug answer back, like, well, it's of importance to the Emperor, so it's important to you.
Which makes me surprised that the Empire or the Emperor isn't just funneling any money he needs towards it, and he has to go through Tarkin to get his money.
Well, remember what the Empire is still to 99% of the galaxy a government.
So they have to go through their bureaucratic channels to get the money. I see.
Yes.
I see. Even for Palpatine's special personal projects.
Yes. They can't just be outright of, oh, we're going to create clones of the Emperor, so he will always be the Emperor forever and always. Have to little. Because you can argue that the Death Star was for protection of the Empire. Same with the TIE Defender project. This, you can't really say that's anything for the good of the Empire. And again, I'm not an Empire sympathizer. That I need everybody to know that. But again, to 99% of the galaxy.
Maybe not 99.
95% of the galaxy. They are a government.
I mean, they are a government, but not a good one.
Well, remember, we focus in Star Wars on the Outer Rim.
But I also think the Bad Batch has shown... the Bad Batch has shown... The Empire is not great from the beginning, most places. Yeah. There are planets, though, like, I think we see some of them in, like, Battlefront 2's campaign, like, planets who are aggressively loyal to the Empire. And you're right, it's like the inner rim, wealthy planets.
Yeah, like the Hunger Games. Closer you are to the capital, better it is for you.
Yeah. Always up for a Hunger Games connection. But anyway, we...
Hunger Games.
That'd be kind of fun. Lightsabers. But we see Tarkin being petty, talking to Hemlock. Hemlock basically says... shut up, kind of. And then we see Emery, after she's talking to Hemlock before his call with Tarkin, she insists on going to get their latest asset, their latest specimen, which is that kidnapped child from the beginning of the episode.
Yes.
And we see when Emery gets there, she's kind of taken back by the age of the child.
Yeah.
And it's further highlighting, like, I think she knows something's up. And we kind of didn't talk about, like, the part where the kid tried to escape and
Scorch.
The Scorch was kind of a jerk.
Kind of a jerk.
Yeah, he stunned him.
Just 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, no, it was a lot. But they, the girl that was really nice to Emery asked if he was in trouble, and ultimately Jax ended up being in trouble. And Emery, like, you see her kind of in her private area. She opens up a drawer, and Omega's little doll was in there. So the doll that Omega had made is now given to that child, which is showing us the cracks in Emery's facade, I think.
Yes.
Which is then, as we get to the child.
And that kind of goes back to her conversation with Nala Se. Nala Se is like, what are you going to do about it? And Emery's like, I can't do anything.
And she says, like, they're in your care now.
She's like, yeah, you can. Mm-hmm. You're chief scientist.
Yeah.
So, I want to go more in... Hopefully I want to see more of their relationship.
We have a lot to accomplish.
Tales of Camino.
We're getting a little ambitious there. But
I know.
We don't have a lot of time left to do a lot of things, I feel like.
Yeah.
Which means some stuff might not happen.
Right.
But... hey,
breadcrumbs for more.
We're gonna take what we can get, right? But so Emery ends up picking the child. Cad Bane says she's asking too many questions because she starts asking about it, and Cad Bane just happily takes his money and leaves. Again, highlighting how ruthless he is.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
And when they get there, Emery says, "I need to see for myself." Do you think Emery was contemplating lying, saying he's not force sensitive?
Yes, 100%. Because I think they showed that Cad Bane using the test and Emery using the test. I was fully expecting her to be like, "Oh, fake."
Yeah, me too.
I think, again, it's kind of teeing up for this may happen in the future or something.
Yes.
I'm just so intrigued by the character of Emery. She's unlike any character that we've seen before for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And
we don't see her after Bad Batch, so at least not that we know of.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's hold our speculation on Emery because we'll just get too excited. But we ultimately come back to Tantus. They're doing more blood sample stuff, and what's going on? I think that's when we kind of had the
the doll.
The doll. I got a little ahead of myself there.
It's okay.
But yeah, no, just highlighting Emery and her connection. We talk about how it's all about connection and stuff.
Yes, and everything here is intertwined. And not to jump too ahead, we're coming back to Tantus. The story will end at Tantus.
And I think this is like priming us for the return to come back to Tantus. Yes. But as a transition into the next episode, when Hemlock was talking to Tarkin earlier in the episode, he calls up the CX-2, the robo-clone that we may or may not have a speculation for the identity.
We have the speculation for.
We'll talk about that. But Hemlock basically says, "Where is Omega? You gotta get me Omega." Mm-hmm. And CX-2 says, "I'm close."
Yes.
As we're using that as a transition to the next episode, I wanted to see what you thought about this episode overall.
Oh, I thought it was very good. You know me, I like the gritty stuff.
Made me, like I said, sick to my stomach.
When we were discussing this off the air at the office, Joey made a comment to me of, "Good thing they released 2 episodes at once, so you don't have to feel really crappy after watching the first episode." I didn't watch the episodes back to back, and he knew that. And I'm like, well, I didn't get there yet.
I mean, the second one doesn't leave you feeling much better, but at least it's not child torture.
Yeah.
In a way. It's leading to child torture, potentially.
So, coming in, let's just jump right into episode 2. Episode 2 is called The Point of No Return.
Yes, and I think that is, in fact... Oh, we didn't talk about the title meaning real quick before we do Point of No Return. Identity Crisis. Clearly Emery.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to spend much more time on that, but Emery's having an identity crisis.
What is she? Is she a clone? Is she a scientist? Is she a kid?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I think she's going to have a turn.
I think
Redemption
so
in Star Wars. We've been talking about it the whole series. But, yeah, so point of no return.
So point of no return starts with our second favorite pirate.
Fee!
Yes, just for anybody wondering, my favorite pirate is Hondo.
There's only one option for favorite pirate in Star Wars.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
I thought we might see him this season.
We might. We still might.
It's true. I
bet him and Omega would be good friends.
Oh my god, kind of like the same Ezra relationship. Like, we have to trust him.
Yeah.
He might not be as softened as he was in Rebels at this point in the timeline, but still. But yeah, we see Fee landing her ship. I really liked the ship and how the droid kind of like got sucked in. Yeah, and I know.
When it was landing, I'm like, ooh,
we've seen it before, right? Have we?
Maybe. I thought she was on the Marauder last time.
Let's see.
But while you're looking that up, she lands at space station to refuel.
We've heard of her ship, but we haven't seen her ship before.
Okay. So she lands at the space station to refuel. She's refueling. And we see the other ship come of CX2.
Mm-hmm. And for full transparency, Tech Watch, our favorite segment this week, it's not going to get out of the way. It's going to be present throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, so this episode is a Tech Watch. I may be eating my words next week or 2 weeks from now.
He's changing his mind.
For the record, I'm not changing my mind. I think the Tech we know is dead.
I have an important question, Dan.
Go ahead.
My man touched a lot of buttons this week.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm sorry. Didn't Rex have a thing here?
Not as much. He didn't use it as much. But anyway, we have...
He was dialing.
Dan again, for like the 5th week in a row, is pressing his arm as if he is Tech in an evil clone trooper armor. Yeah. Anyway.
Sweet armor.
So Tech and Fee, they were real sweet on each other.
One was sweet on the other.
They both... Tech, in his awkward way, definitely was a fan.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think he may have known his way around that ship.
I think so. And I think...
he knew exactly what he was doing.
He looked back when he saw who it was.
Oh, yeah. He knew exactly what was going on. I think
Did he? So, I'm just going to throw out my questions here. Did they wipe his mind? And if they did, how far?
This is a wonderful question, because I don't believe that if Tech... Like, remember how earlier we talked about, like, is he pretending? I don't think this is not pretending. When we first saw him standing there, pretending was an option. When we watched him try to almost really kill Crosshair, I don't think that was pretending. This is certainly not pretending everything we see in this episode. But yeah. I think knowing... Maybe you're right. Like, he doesn't know... necessarily Fee, but when he sees her, maybe his it starts to flood back to her. Clearly not enough to solve the problem right now.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing Omega didn't do that.
Well, remember, Omega looks a lot different than the last time he saw her.
That's true. Older.
She's grown up. Her hair is longer.
My wife sent me this tweet where someone had her in the first season and her in the this season, and she really you don't realize it because much like real life, you're kind of she's growing as time passes, but she really looks notably older. I'm going to show Dan this tweet. I was able to pull it up.
Oh yeah, no,
you can just really see. Feel free to look up a picture of her between the first season and the last season. She really looks like a teenager now.
Yeah,
but anyway, CX2. I could be wrong. I want to emphasize that. I'm not 100% certain.
It really could be.
But it
could be Cody.
I don't think there's any story reason for it to be Cody.
There's no story reason for it to be Tech.
Connection to the Bad Batch?
Okay.
What's the show called, Dan? It's not Cody Batch. It's the Bad Batch.
The Incompetent Batch.
This season.
Okay, let's skip.
This season. I don't know. This season, I'm kind of struggling. It feels like my third year of graduate school this season.
But you're in your 5th, so it worked.
Fourth. I'm in my fourth.
Hey,
I wish I was in my 5th. Anyway.
So we see CX2 get the coordinates and leaves.
And this lends credibility to your mind-wiping theory. Because obviously Crosshair would know what Pabu... Crosshair, jeez. Tech would know... If it is Tech would know about Pabu.
I agree. And I also think it also lends credibility to what Ventress was telling them last week of, you're not safe. if I could find you, other people can find you.
I wish Ventress told them how she found them. I think it would be helpful for them.
I don't think Ventress likes them.
I do not think... I think she likes Omega.
I don't blame her.
No, I don't think she really cares. I think she cares about Omega, as we talked about last week.
If we're Ventress, if we see Ventress and she gets a little hologram that the Bad Batch were all killed, I don't think she would care. I think she'd be like, okay.
I even think Fennec might care more than
Ventress would be like, they deserved it. They were arrogant.
Yeah, and to a certain extent they kind of are. But,
that's the theme of the season.
But anyway, we come back to Pabu. Thank you for indulging in part 1 of this week's Tech Watch, but I imagine we'll be coming back throughout. But we come to Pabu in our next portion of Tech Watch. We see Omega with her friend... What's her name? Liana. Omega and Liana are in this area where it's like kind of like a museum on Pabu where people who come there and are able to like better themselves leave a memory of themselves on the planet. It was so sweet. What did she choose to leave, Dan?
She chose to leave her actual doll.
Yeah, and I hope that Wrecker gave her permission to do that because that was Wrecker's.
It was.
I'm sure he did. He knows what's going on.
More importantly,
Tech's goggles. So sad.
Yeah.
So if I keep maybe foolishly thinking that CX2 is Tech. If it is Tech, it kind of lends credibility to like keeping the character in the mind. If it's not Tech, and Tech is truly gone, how sad.
Well,
I feel like the next time I watch this is going to be the whole show is going to be very informed by.
Well, if it's Tech,
the way it ends.
If CX2 is Tech, then we'll see. They're going to have more memories. But like you said, if he is truly dead, I don't think leaving the goggles is a bad thing. I think it's a sign of growth. And they're not going to forget Tech. They're never going to forget Tech. But Pabu to Tech was peace.
And like almost his like home.
Yeah, it's all of their homes. Mm-hmm. And
which makes this episode particularly heartbreaking.
We'll come back to
Star Wars explained talked about how like he viewed this as like Omega's grown, like this is like leaving the toy and the goggles as Omega's like growing up, like
yes
she can, and she proves this episode she's confident enough in herself that she can go without the Bad Batch.
Yes.
So with that, we see her leave these. We see Batcher doing more cute things. And we cut to
our rescued clones too.
Yeah, the kids, the little clones. It was nice to see them. I've been wanting to see them as we go back and forth from Pabu, but I think they intentionally saved it to hurt us this week.
When you put it like that,
they know what they're doing. They're not stupid.
No,
it's wonderful, but it's also terrible at the same time. But we. Hunter, I think you can kind of see Hunter this season. He's tense.
He is tense. And
I feel bad because I feel like Hunter was kind of like the cool, calm, collected leader. And this season really is like humanizing him in a way.
Hunter seems 2 steps behind on everything.
Season. And I don't know if it's his fault.
And I don't know how much time has passed since the last episode.
I think I was surprised, honestly, to see them listening to Ventress. Like seeing them packing up the Marauder.
But that's just it. Was it a day later?
I would assume that it was pretty quick. Like I want to say, like the fact that they're listening in the first place probably means that
we know them. They had to have sat down and thought about it and had a discussion on the ship.
Definitely. And Omega probably didn't want to go, but I think Omega probably understood. I don't know how. I don't know what.
I think Omega should have gone with Ventress. You know how sweet that would have been.
I mean, yeah.
Omega getting a lightsaber.
I think also Omega is force sensitive now. We're going to talk about this later at the end. We'll leave that be. We don't know if she's force sensitive. We know she's got a high M count.
Anyway.
We'll use the word midichlorian count.
So we see CX2.
No. Hang on. No, go ahead. Yeah, do your CX2. Go ahead.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, no, you're right. I was going to kind of skip ahead a little further, but it's okay. Go ahead.
We see CX2 climbing up the island after he lands, and ironically, the same cave
entrance. I was wondering.
Thing.
I didn't know if it was the same. It looks the same.
It was, and if you notice, he had 4 places he could have landed, and he looks like he picked which.
They really should get like motion sensors or something.
Well, they did. Remember, they showed that
when
Wrecker was loading the ship,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
CX2's ship did come up on radar.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then he cloaked it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, going back to last week, how did they miss Ventress? That's why.
Uh-huh. Cloaking. So, yeah, he ultimately climbs up into, like, the actual, like, town square, and he sees Omega.
Yeah, confirms it's Omega, confirms it's the clones.
And confirms it with, you know...
Our best friend, Scorch.
Who says, let us know, we'll be there. Yeah. So they ultimately, when they see her, CX2 says...
Because we knew this. They talked about this in the last episode. When Hemlock was talking to CX2, he said, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure he did, that Scorch was on standby with...
And when they found...
They'll be there.
And that this was that, confirming that. Yes. We now then kind of cut to, you know, all throughout this portion of the episode, we see Wrecker and everyone kind of loading up the Marauder with supplies and stuff so that they can leave Pabu.
Also, I've got to ask this. Why were they not helping Wrecker?
I don't know. They must have been doing something.
I don't know. I just know that we saw Crosshair put 2 helmets on a cart and walk away.
He did. I wondered what that was about. And
also, you could argue that if they actually stayed to help, could have maybe gotten away.
He seemed pretty done. It seemed like they had done the bulk. The way that I read the situation was that they had already done the bulk of it, and they were just leaving Wrecker to finish while they were doing the rest of their business. But we see Wrecker kind of finishing up with Gonki, and a ship kind of comes by and starts to, in a very sad turn of events, destroy the Marauder.
The ship didn't destroy the Marauder.
What destroy? Oh, bombs. You're right. Bombs from CX2.
CX2.
Sorry.
The ship wasn't there yet.
Yeah, no. The bombs from CX2 destroyed the Marauder.
Yes. So CX2 blows up the Marauder. Sends Gonki and Wrecker into the water.
Wrecker intentionally puts himself in harm's way to save Gonki, which is adorable and
Wrecker noticed. Remember, Wrecker is a demolitions expert. He probably is a little more apt to hearing the beeping.
And he definitely did.
Than everybody else. Sees it, tries to save Gonki, tries to get away, ultimately gets thrown into the water. There we see the Bad Batch.
And he's rendered unconscious for the rest of the episode.
The rest of the Bad Batch of Crosshair, Hunter, and Omega and Batcher all run down to the ship to see what happened. And here we hear Crosshair make this statement of, ships just don't explode.
Yeah.
We've been compromised. We've been made. And then we see, in beautiful Star Wars fashion, the Venator peeking through the clouds.
Oh, yeah.
As the doors open up and the clone attack ships come
out.
I
said, uh-oh, as soon as I saw that.
So sweet.
Can we talk about, I hate when ships get destroyed. I hated when the Razor Crest got destroyed.
But, go ahead.
It just makes me sad, because it's their home.
Well, it's symbolizing that they need to grow up. Not grow up. That's bad. They need to move.
We're going to fight on air.
We're going to grow.
It's pushing them past where they were. And I think the same thing happened with the Razor Crest, where he didn't need a ship for bounty hunting because he's not a bounty hunter anymore.
Right. And
I don't know what this means for the Bad Batch yet.
We don't know, because CX2 has... This is where we're seeing that when the Empire's military actually in action. I mean, we're so used to seeing the Empire's army not in good situations for them. For example, on the Death Star, that's not a mobilized army. That's just everybody's kind of there. So, like in A New Hope, we didn't really see them. The first real time we saw the Galactic Army, the Imperial Army, was on Hoth. And remember, they were wildly successful.
Yeah. Very.
General Veers really just got that done. So here we get to see them actually kind of in action, being like, make sure you don't give anybody away off the island.
And that kind of leads us to Hunter's, like the Bad Batch kind of splits up. Wrecker had already been taken to Shep's house. Hunter said he's going to go steal a gunship.
Right.
And they needed to go check on Wrecker and get him, ready for them to leave. And ultimately, Hunter wants to be able to get one of the gunships to leave and contact Echo. So, as this is happening, we see CX2 kind of leading this hunt for Omega. we see stormtroopers shooting at Batcher.
Yes.
Batcher couldn't help herself when people were like getting attacked unjustly by the Empire.
Our first time seeing the red bolts too.
Yeah, no, they weren't messing around this time.
We are now in the true Empire.
Mm-hmm. And granted, I don't think that they would try to kill Omega specifically, but I think everyone else is on the table.
Well, that's what they said.
Yeah.
Remember when CX2 confirmed it to Scorch? Scorch said, cover the asset alive, and then CX2 even asked, what about the clones with her? Mm-hmm. And Scorch kind of said, if they get in your way, take care of them. Mm-hmm. So they were not under... The Empire really doesn't care about the Bad Batch.
No, they
really don't.
They don't care about clones in general. These are like defective clones in their eyes.
And they didn't even say kill them. They just did not care. They're like, if they get in your way, get rid of them. But if not, just grab the girl and let's go.
Yeah, so as we're doing that, they kind of are continuing to terrorize the town. And we see Hunter kind of ultimately stealing one of these gunships.
Yeah.
And CX2 shoots the pilot of this gunship so that it crashes. Yeah. Even though this I guess Hunter didn't successfully fully steal it.
No, he
would. I think he would have.
Yeah.
But the pilot was trying to shake him and he couldn't. And CX2 actually shoots the pilot in order to compromise the ship, which at that point I was like, oh god, this is like you already had this feeling it wasn't going to end well, but like that's when the dread starts to kick in.
Yeah, and you knew once there was no way off the island for them.
Mm-hmm. And Crosshair was watching and knew that Crosshair and Omega knew that Hunter was okay at this point.
Yes,
but they're kind of in the spot now where Hunter is kind of not able to help them. Right. Wrecker is out of commission.
Batcher's somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And we're left in Shep's house with Omega essentially saying that in order to save Pabu and the Bad Batch, she needs to turn herself in.
Right.
I think that we've been talking about like Omega maturing the whole way through.
And we have talked about a couple weeks ago, how is this going to happen? And we did say Omega will be the one to surrender herself.
Yeah, no, it made a lot of sense. It was hard to watch, but she didn't even hesitate, which I think shows her like how much she's learned from the Bad Batch. She like really is teaching them well, or they have taught her well, and she knows that for the sake of Pabu and the sake of everything and the mission of finding Tantus and rescuing the clones, she needs to turn herself in.
Yes, I agree.
And she came up with 2 different options for Crosshair to convince Crosshair so that she could be tracked. The first is to use her comm, and the second was for Crosshair to shoot the ship that she was on with a tracker.
Right.
The first one we see, Omega ultimately turns herself in, and they immediately test her for a comm.
And this is where we see Crosshair's maturity over Omega, because he kind of metaphorically shoots both of those ideas down, being like, they're gonna search you immediately.
She knew that.
Yeah, and then the second one, he with the ship, he said, "Yeah, that's not going to work."
Because he knows how much he's been struggling with this.
They don't know where they're going to take her. Were they going to take her on a gunship up to the Venator?
They're pipe dream level plans, and Crosshair knows this.
Yes,
but Crosshair also does know that it's not viable for her to do nothing either. Right. So I think he begrudgingly says, okay. Mm-hmm. Hunter, as they're talking to him, wants to stick to their original plan. But Omega essentially says, this isn't going to end until they get me, and it's going to be terrible. Yes. Again, Crosshair still is like, okay, whatever. But yeah, they find her, she turns herself in. Do you think that there's any other hidden comm link on her tracker, on her person? Because they kind of stopped at her like pockets. They didn't go down to like her feet or anything. That seems a little anticlimactic for a Star Wars thing, for her to have another tracker on her.
Yeah,
I think they would ultimately find that as well.
That's tough. I don't think.
So I think we'll kind of let that be.
I think she has a tracker. No, maybe not.
I think it was her comm.
No, I thought the Empire maybe put one in her.
I feel like they
would have used it. Yes. Remember, Crosshair has one, or the CX troopers have one.
Yes, but so we see CX2 loading Omega onto the ship, and Crosshair's ready to shoot this tracker onto the ship, But unfortunately, we see stormtroopers come and like find him and start shooting him. He ultimately fights them off, and he sets up for what's going to be this 1 in a million Star Wars shot. And you're fully ready to like breathe a sigh of relief.
Mm-hmm.
He shoots, and it just goes bloop, right into the water. Oh my god! I feel like all season they were building up to Crosshair regaining his, and I don't even necessarily know if this one was Crosshair's fault fully.
No,
I think it was the time.
I think he
would have got it if the ship was still and it was
remember the ship started to move too. So the ship started to move. He had to do it quick, and he just miscalculated it.
And I don't even know if it was miscalculation or if it was just out of reach.
He just didn't account for it moving.
And I think part of me was expecting failure a little bit because I think we would have seen him like stop, center himself, and like Omega kind of taught him. So I was kind of expecting failure because we didn't see something like that. But we see CX2 on this ship. Anything else to add about Crosshair before we kind of go to the end of the episode?
I think we're going to get a Crosshair redemption shot. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe it'll be Hemlock. Maybe it'll be Tech. Maybe it'll be Scorch. I don't know.
I hope. This kind of leaves me with this feeling. We'll talk about the ending in a second. But this episode leaves me with this feeling of like, I don't want this to be a Rogue One thing where they each have to sacrifice themselves in a way that's unique and special to them in order to get Omega out or something.
But if it does come to that, I think it'd be in their character.
150%, but I hope that's not the case. Anyway,
in Tech Watch 1 this week, did we talk about whether Tech will get revealed, or was that off the air?
I can't remember, but regardless, we were having a discussion, whether it's on air, please forgive us. We were talking about how is it possible, I think it was off the air, so I think this might be valuable, but are they going to reveal who CX2 is, or are they going to like kill CX2 and then retroactively realize that it could be Tech? I feel like that's unlikely, but it would be so gut-wrenching.
I feel like Crosshair has a redemption shot coming up. And I think he's going to get, like, one of the three people I mentioned. Scorch, Hemlock, or CX2. That's who his redemption shot is going to be. And I can see it being CX2. And then them going up to see who it was. And lo and behold, Tech with the contact lenses.
I really hate this idea so much.
You could see it happening.
I can see it happening. I hate it. That's not what I envisioned when we started Tech Watch.
And then you could see the Bad Batch around them, Crosshair's humanity coming out, him being distraught.
All right, I'm done with this idea because it's making me sad.
But I could see this.
Anyway, another idea is that Crosshair could have his shot at something that's not Tech. But anyway,
CX2, who's not
maybe
Tech.
CX3. They showed in the previous episode. We didn't really talk about it. Hemlock is working on what looks to be like an angrier CX like helmet. So there could be some new CX clones coming.
Are they clones? Are we going to get to the point now where they're just...
Well, and I don't know if you noticed, but the lenses on the helmet kind of looked a little Dark Trooper-ish. And in Legends, clones were used as the first Dark Troopers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we still got the wolf thing coming up. I don't know.
Have we seen Death Troopers yet, or no?
Not at this time, I don't think.
Could be them.
Could be. A whole bunch of stuff it could be. But, so leaving the sad stuff aside, we get to the end of the episode where CX2 says that he has acquired his target, and we have Omega take her helmet off. I was kind of initially expecting to see like a tracker in the helmet or something, but we see her kind of like do the breathing and centering herself. And this is a question that I kind of alluded to having earlier, but do you think that she's using the Force?
I don't think she's using it. I think she's meditating.
Do you...
I think she will be thinking about what Ventress told her.
I think that ultimately is going to be how she gets them to Tantus.
Yes.
And after last week I said I don't want that to happen. I think I kind of like that idea now.
They kind of talked about cloning and how in however many million people, it's not unnecessarily foreign for there to be a clone with an elevated M count. Ventress even said it. She's like, Well, when you make that many people, there's bound to be mutations.
Uh-huh.
So could we be seeing... Could that be explaining Omega's M count? Because initially we talked about Omega being the perfect summary of all the Bad Batch. Especially early on, having Hunter's aptitude of just being aware of his surroundings. Tech knowledge, crosshairs, sniping, and ability. And could it be that? I don't know. We don't know what Omega is yet.
And it's all much like the Emery Carr stuff. I think they're just kind of teeing us up to
get gut punched.
Not necessarily get gut punched.
You're
just
right.
to get answers to these questions.
Spitting gut kicked.
No. Just I'm not speaking about that right now, which is very possible. But I'm talking about just setting it up to get an answer to these questions. And I do think that there's something to the meditation.
Yes.
That could lead to them being found.
Will we see Gunji?
Probably not. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, if she is meditating, how will she lead them?
Not them. I think it would... Ventress is where my head went, but Gunji would be cool to see him again.
Imagine that.
Oh, that would be... But every time I see him, I get nervous because we don't know where he is. Moral of the story, I think we are in for a lot of... lot of anxiousness over the next few weeks.
There are 5 episodes left, right? Or 4?
Depends on whether they're 15 or 16, but currently this was 11, there's 12, 13, 14, 15, so there are 4 currently listed episodes.
We are in for, if each episode's 25 minutes.
We don't necessarily know that.
If. Because, I mean, these 2 episodes were 23 and 25 respectively.
But we are getting 1 episode each the following weeks, which makes me feel like they're going to leave us. You know how you earlier said, wow. Or I had said, wow. And that's why they did 2, because they didn't want to leave you with that whole child kidnapping thing. Mm-hmm. But whatever this is, they're leaving us with it. And that, before we talk about this, what did you think of these 2 episodes together? Let's talk about Point of No Return. Mm-hmm. I think the title is a little self-explanatory.
Yeah. This is it. They have to. It is now or never. If they're going to Tantus, they have to do it now.
Mm-hmm. And that is very apparent. So what did you think of this episode? Did you like it?
It was good.
Me too. I hated it, but I loved it at the same time.
Yeah. And we didn't even talk about the stormtroopers. Just how menacing they were.
Yeah.
They showed them just that group walking around with flamethrowers. Mm-hmm. Right before Omega gave herself up, it looks like they were going to burn down the building.
Mm-hmm. And I think our big Star Wars ideas this week are like the cruelty of the Empire and why it's important to not allow things like that to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's the big idea. It's like the opposite of the redemption discussions we're having. And like I think the self-sacrifice stuff too is another big lesson.
Yeah, if we didn't get a big enough one in Rogue One, we're going to get a bunch of individual ones now.
I was talking more about Omega right now.
Oh.
You always got to bring the mood down.
It's my job.
It's
happy cop, sad cop.
I'm happily happy cop.
Oh, I know. And everybody listening knows that.
Well, yeah, Grim Dan. We're gonna try to.
I go to the extreme in hopes of being excited,
but we usually average out in the middle. I feel like with what actually happens.
That's the sad part.
That's what leads me to. I think the tech thing might be sad. Tech Watch. This was essentially a Tech Watch episode, which is very exciting. We did.
Tech Watch is one of my favorite segments.
I'm sad it's almost coming to a conclusion, as with this show.
It might come to a conclusion next week. We don't know.
I'm ready. But that leads us to next week, which is Season 3, Episode 12, called Juggernaut. Not the X-Men character, probably. Most likely.
No.
What do you think that means?
What is it? Well, what is a Juggernaut, first of all?
As Dan's looking that up, I will continue to say again, this is 1 episode this week. Just Episode 12, the Juggernaut.
Juggernaut is a, quote, huge, powerful, and overwhelming force or institution.
Seems like the Empire might be the Juggernaut.
Or are we going to get a Juggernaut, a person that they're going to have to?
You think a Juggernaut that the good guys are recruiting to help go to Tantus?
No, a Juggernaut that they're going to have to face when they get to Tantus. I don't know.
I know. It's a wonderful question because it's like...
Could be anything.
That does kind of lead us, like... I think it is with these few episodes remaining to go through the rest of the titles. And we'll do this as every week as we go up. Juggernaut is next week. The following week is Into the Breach. The following one is called Flash Strike. And then the last one we currently have listed is The Cavalry Has Arrived. The record quote from their first appearance in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But I think the episode 13 being called Into the Breach makes me feel like we're not getting to Tantus just yet with the good guys.
I think episode 13 is when we get actually into Tantus. And I think...
Or like, really setting up the plan to get to it.
And 14 and 15 are actually Tantus itself. I mean, just going based on the titles.
And this Mystery 16, who knows?
My guess is 13 they get to Tantus. It ends with them actually getting inside. 14 is them trying to A, rescue Omega, and then B, get the clones, while simultaneously calling for help. And 15 will be, as the title implies, the cavalry coming. We get Rex, we get Echo, we get whatever rebuilt clone army they have, and maybe this is where we'll get Ventress.
Yeah, potentially, or any of the other connections that they've made.
Maybe we'll get Sid. Who knows?
Oh God, this is a question that my wife and I had.
They name dropped Sid this week.
I was. That's what we're wondering. Was it because the CX2 said the Trandoshan? What, just what the Trandoshan said, or something?
Yeah, that's Sid.
Do you think he killed her? I wish we got to see it. That would have been fun. Hate that character.
Now who's the grim one?
It's a terrible character. Fun
She's
fact.
a good character.
And
a good character.
May I bring up... I've been talking about how much I've been enjoying Final Fantasy recently, but in every Final Fantasy, there is a character named Cid, C-I-D. And in most Star Wars, in most Final Fantasies, there are two characters named Biggs and Wedge. So I think that was like their nod to Final Fantasy to name a character Cid. But of course, it's such a terrible I hate her.
She's a good character who does a good job of making us hate her.
Oh my
She
God.
is like Joffrey from Game of Thrones. He was a fantastic character. The actor did an amazing job.
Oh yes, 150%. But she's
She's a good villain character.
I saw a tweet that said the only way I want to see Sid in Bad Batch Season 3, and it was like a picture of like alligator boots. Like, I don't know. It would have been a little cathartic to see CX2 Tech. CX Tech, right in the head. Anyway, I think we got a lot to look forward to with Bad Batch, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. But I'm also dreading it. I'm going to have my Kleenex ready, I feel like.
I'm just going to roll with it.
As we talked about last week, I'm an emotional watcher.
I'm not.
I
get invested, but I don't get emotional.
I get both, and I'll send you the pile of Kleenex that I end up going through.
Are you in? Are you gonna do your own, or are you gonna do a joint pile?
Maybe we should do separate. My wife, as I mentioned, also very emotional.
Separate and combine them.
Yeah, we can get a count going. We can do like a bet over under for how many.
Everybody, you just each get your own box, little box. You see how many.
Man. Anyway, let's say it's going to be a happy ending. But yeah, so that brings us to the end of our discussion of the Bad Batch for this week.
Yes, and brings us to What If.
This idea Dan came up with is very clever, but if you're unfamiliar, Marvel has a series on Disney Plus of it's like a little animated series called What If, where hypothetical Marvel scenarios are thrown out, and then the stories play out based on those scenarios.
For example, if you guys are Captain America fans, one of their what ifs is, what if it was Peggy Carter who got in the super soldier chamber instead of Steve Rogers?
And then the story plays out, and it's very interesting to see the like what might have actually happened, and to see like a full-fledged story play out beyond like, you could do like your fan fiction in your mind, but like to have the actual people involved with creating the stories, doing it is really, I think it's really interesting and really fun. And I don't know if this is something they would do, but
they're both owned by Disney, so you don't know.
And there's often sometimes crossover, like all the Star Wars comics are published by Marvel these days.
My guess would be no. My guess is we're not going to see this only because Star Wars fans are totally rational and don't overthink things.
This should be canon. All that, yes. But let's say it were to happen. We have, we're currently planning on doing 3 each situations we'd like to see. I have some extras listed. We'll see what happens.
We'll just play off the time.
So let's go, Dan, from starting with your least anticipated to your most anticipated of what you have.
Okay.
So we're each going to start with 3, and then if we have others, we can do like an honorable mention.
Okay. All
right. So your third favorite what if idea you would like to see. What do you got?
Here's a couple. I didn't rank them like that, so I have to think now.
Would you like me to go first?
No,
Okay.
I have a good one. What if they never got the plans off of Scarif in Rogue One?
That's a wonderful one. I really like. Where would that even play out? What would
I don't
happen?
know. What? I'm sure they would have had to have found another way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more espionage-esque.
Or like a defector, like a more overt defection.
Yeah.
Like Galen. I think it could potentially give us like a new Imperial character to love.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful, like, because it really does seem like that was like their own, like 1 in a million shot on a 1 in a million shot on a 1 in a million shot to get the plans, to execute it, and all of that.
Yeah. So what happens if they didn't?
I think it would be darker for a while.
Oh,
sure.
Most definitely. And then we would have watched Rogue One, got an attachment to all these characters. And you talk about gut punches. That would be a gut punch. They do all this work for nothing.
Of course, we're not surprised that Dan comes up with a more grim what if scenario.
It's not grim. Well, that's kind of grim.
I think mine, most of them trend upward. But this brings me to my third one. It actually isn't one that trends happier. It's what would have happened if Thrawn didn't disappear during the events of the Galactic Civil War.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Now, that is with the impression, and again, we're talking about Star Wars Rebels here. This is, let's assume that the TIE Defender factory was still destroyed.
Okay.
How would Thrawn have contributed to the Civil War if he was there?
That's really tough. Because we know Thrawn was not necessarily a fan of Tarkin.
Mm-hmm.
Or Krennic.
Because, you know...
Or really anybody.
It was, what was the funding? Was it going to the Death Star and Krennic or the TIE Defenders? So clearly the TIE Defenders weren't a thing. But in Ahsoka, we do see him still... We know his motivations for joining the Empire are for the Chiss, but we still see him relatively loyal to the Empire.
Yeah.
And I think it would not have boded well for the...
Would he have become apathetic, though? More like, well, at this point, what is there for me to do? They don't think I'm good enough.
I think he would have fallen. I don't want to say fallen in line, but I think he would have maintained at a high position in the Empire. Mm-hmm. And I think it ultimately would have ended with another, like, we've shown that he underestimates the Force in Rebels. And that lesson is, like, overcompensated for in Ahsoka, where he's trusting the Night Sisters when they clearly have their own little plans going on. Mm-hmm. I think the story might be that another Force user would have to do something unexpected to teach him a similar lesson.
Right.
Because, you know, in season 3 of Rebels, it's the Bendu that gets him. In season 4, it's the Purgo. I think something of that kind might. But I think it would have to show, like, him delivering crushing defeats to the Rebels. Because the Rebel Alliance clearly it's scrappy.
Oh, yeah.
And having that master strategist there probably wouldn't have done well for them.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like we talked about in mine, they needed a 1 in a million shot, 1 in a million shot, 1 in a million shot to even get the plans off. Then they needed that same number to even get the ion torpedo into the vent. Mm-hmm. Like you said, they are very lucky. And now they're going up against a master tactician who's smart enough not to underestimate them. I think that was really the downfall of the Empire, especially in A New Hope. Tarkin, during the attack, they say to Tarkin, we need to go. And he's like, now, in my time of triumph, no.
Tarkin is
prideful.
Very prideful. And Thrawn, while he's confident, he's not stupid.
He knows when the game is up.
Which I think there are many bad things that could have happened if Thrawn survived.
Yeah.
Or not survived, but, you know, if Thrawn wasn't exported to a different galaxy for the Civil War. But with that's my number 3. What do you think about your second one?
Ooh, that's a good one. What if Qui-Gon bought Shmi Skywalker?
Interesting. This brings me to one of my backup ones, and I'm going to just cross it off now. What if Qui-Gon trained Anakin?
Same thing.
Maybe we could potentially kind of like... Basically, Qui-Gon, I feel like Qui-Gon's survival is ultimately what happens here.
Yeah.
I feel like... I think this ultimately boils to the question of how absolutely essential was it for Anakin to be part of Palpatine's empire?
Right, and that also kind of crosses out one of my backup ones too, of what if Mace Windu killed Palpatine in the window?
I think Anakin would be the Emperor.
Would he?
Let's talk about Qui-Gon first.
Yes. I think if Shmi Skywalker survived...
When you say that, would it have instead of Anakin or in addition to Anakin?
In addition.
Okay, I wasn't
It
sure.
gets them both.
Okay. I almost feel like Anakin would have not been able to be trained in the Order because his attachment would have been very in his face.
What would it have been? I mean, I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking Attack of the Clones.
Uh-huh.
When he goes out and kills the women and children too. If he knew Shmi was alive this whole time,
would not have happened.
Yeah, and that is really his first step to the dark path, the dark side.
But also, that like the Jedi are taking these children from, like, they're not even like Obi-Wan in the Kenobi show talks about how he vaguely knows that he had a brother because he was taken so young. Like, I think the Jedi Council probably would have had a fit. They already said he was too old.
Right.
But if his mother was present...
Well, I'm not saying she would be present.
I
think Anakin would know she was safe.
I feel like they may not have even wanted to train him. But if we're going with them, since they did, I think you would end up with a more headstrong, less anxious Anakin.
Yeah. And I think that just shows the importance of Qui-Gon, too.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of leads to my backup one of, like, I think if Qui-Gon trained Anakin, I think it's possible that they both could have left the Order and, like...
Yeah.
Because Qui-Gon clearly was on the outs. Anakin is very non-traditional.
I agree.
Dan just mouthed... I'm going to say it again because I feel very passionately about this. Dan just mouthed to me, Gray Jedi. I don't believe in the concept. There's no such thing. I will not comment on that further at the moment.
Okay.
Anything else to add on that one?
No. What about you? What's your...
My second one is, what if Leia didn't stop her Jedi training?
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
She's a chosen one, I think.
Okay, that's a loaded question. No. I think I've already talked on air about how I'm not the biggest fan of chosen one prophecies and stories.
Didn't George Lucas intend for her to be the chosen?
George Lucas changes what he says like the weather. Whatever makes him sound smartest at the time, generally, is my experience with watching George Lucas talk about things.
Okay, so let's kind of go back on track. Mm-hmm. And this kind of goes into one of my backups as well, of what if Kylo Ren didn't kill Han Solo?
Okay.
And this goes back to, if Leia never stopped her Jedi training, would she have married Han? Or is this in the new Jedi Order where you can have attachments?
So at this point, she had already married Han and had Ben when she was doing her training. So I think Luke was kind of letting that go. I don't know if he didn't know yet or thought, well, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah. So do we think she would have trained Ben Solo?
I almost feel like in Luke, I think Luke is such a... We haven't really talked about Luke much. I know he's one of your favorite characters, but...
He's my...
Not Dooku, but...
He's my third what if, so... He can...
Okay. Well, I'd say, like, Luke shows the importance that connection and, like, empathy has that the Jedi of the prequels have kind of lost. Mm-hmm. And I think having that connection would have made it at least a lot harder for Palpatine through Snoke to manipulate Ben Solo.
Yes.
And I think that really is the power of that, on top of Leia just being a super cool Jedi.
Yes.
Side note, one of my favorite lightsabers in Star Wars.
It's ridiculously cool.
I have it, the Black Series one. I love it. You've seen it, right?
Oh, yeah, I've seen it.
Okay,
I've held it.
Yeah. I
remember when you bought it.
Yeah, no, I was very excited about that.
Yeah, it's sweet.
I have a wonderful collection of Force FX lightsabers.
It is. I'm jealous.
I need some more.
May the 4th is coming up.
It is.
Remember we did last year.
Last year we bought NeoPixel lightsabers for May the 4th. They're awesome.
Yes. Totally
official, not officially licensed, but still has officially licensed dialogue coming from it. But
mine doesn't.
Mine does. It'll like play like Rey's dialogue.
They gave me a USB I can plug into my computer.
I got one of those too. I haven't played with it.
It's not touching my computer. I don't trust it.
There's a lot I don't trust about it, but hey, it's awesome.
It's sweet. So my house now has 2 mantles. I have one because my bedroom's above the fireplace, so I technically have a fireplace in my bedroom.
Oh, that's cool.
It's boarded up, but Still, I get 2 mantles. So I have a lightsaber on each one. Yeah.
Your NeoPixel was a very nice Luke replica where like the blade could come out, right?
Yes.
I got just a simple NeoPixel with just like a basic hilt.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the effects, because I have tons of...
Yeah.
Like
That's my second one. My first one is a Count Dooku Black Series.
Wonderful. That was... Dan got that. This is, again, one of the times where I knew Dan and I were going to be friends. That was what he got for himself as getting a job present when he started working in the lab we work in.
Yeah.
Wonderful. But with that brings me to my... that was my second. We're now going to your first.
Okay. This one I feel is one of the more asked ones, but I just want to talk about and hear your thoughts on it.
Okay.
What if in Return of the Jedi, Luke gave in to Palpatine and joined the dark side?
I think that your first and my second might have some connection. I think if Luke gave in, I think that would have led to Vader dying.
Yes. Or would they have killed Palpatine to rule the galaxy together?
I honestly think that's very possible. Do we assume that the Death Star, like, let's take the Death Star out of play for this scenario. Okay. So they've not killed the entire Rebel Alliance. Maybe the Death Star is destroyed and they escape or something. Or it doesn't work. They made it ineffective or something. I feel like this is how we would have ended up with a Luke versus Leia sequel trilogy or something, where Luke is the Sith and Leia is the Jedi.
A Luke and Vader duo against Leia.
And Ben. Now, this would make Anakin really old, but he's part cyborg anyway, so who cares? Oof. Oh, I'm getting chilled. That's
spicy.
We should write to Disney about this.
They're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. But it would be awesome. And I think it would... Like, those two are... Luke and Vader are saps. And I think...
Well, that's why I said I think they would kill.
Yeah, I think they'd kill Palpatine. And, like, let's say it's Luke and Vader. I think at the end of the day, we still end up with the good guys winning.
I don't know. Because you said they are saps, but 2 saps in power?
2 saps in power. Fighting Leia and Ben? Oh, my God. So again, this would have had to... We would have had to, like, you know...
Luke and Vader bonding over their hatred of Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's Force Ghost being disappointed, and Yoda backhanding him. Like, I told you.
It's his fault. This is such a fun concept. I think it would be really...
Darth Luke.
What would he look like? Probably what he looks like in Return of the Jedi, right?
Yeah. I mean, this will be
some yellow eyes.
This will be the first time we've seen a young Sith Lord who's not deformed in any way.
Acolyte?
If she's a Sith.
Someone is a dark side user.
Yeah. No, I'm talking full-fledged Sith.
No, I think...
Could you imagine?
That would be sweet.
How scary Luke would be.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He'd be terrifying.
I love that idea. I don't quite know how it plays out, but in my mind, my hope would be that, like, it would go...
But would Leia get her Jedi training? Who would train her?
Force Ghost Obi-Wan. And we know Force Ghost Yoda wanted to train her anyway.
Yeah.
And maybe she goes on this longer... And this is how the time passes. She has been. And she goes on this journey that Luke did in the canon timeline now of, like, collecting all these Jedi artifacts and learning and learning and learning and learning. And then we end up with this confrontation that would be the sequel trilogy. Maybe not 40 years, but a little closer potentially.
And there's still Project Necromancer. There's still Palpatine clones out there.
This sounds like we're writing some Legends nonsense. How many times are they cloning Luke? How many use?
They wouldn't be cloning Luke. They'd be cloning Leia.
Anyway, anything else to add on your top choice?
No, I could talk about that one all day. You could... Really, any of them.
Much like we, for yours, piggybacked back to mine, we're going to piggyback on Ben Solo again. This brings me to my favorite Star Wars movie. And my biggest disappointment with my favorite Star Wars movie. What if Ben Solo didn't die in Rise of Skywalker?
That'd be so cool.
We've been talking for weeks about redemption in Star Wars and Crosshair and how great it was to see not just immediate acceptance. Imagine if Ben Solo had to, if he wasn't sitting in a prison, which, let's be real, he probably wouldn't. It's Star Wars. He's one of our heroes at that point. The work he would have to do to make everyone trust him, and, like, what would he have to do to become, you know, the hero. And
it's not like they don't know what he looks like. It's not, for example, like Darth Vader coming out without his mask being like, surprise. He can't hide himself. everybody knows what Kylo Ren looks
Yeah,
like.
and
he
because
walks
for a
around
while
with
they
a
walked
mask.
around with a helmet on.
Yeah.
And he, off and on in Rise of Skywalker. But I think that would just hold such a promise. And we don't really know what's happening next.
Could you imagine if Rey and Ben Solo walked out of there and saw Finn?
Finn would be so confused.
Finn would like try and shoot him.
Probably.
Or what if Rey joined Kylo Ren before?
No,
Darth
we're not touching that. Rey, as we've mentioned, Rey is my favorite Star Wars character. Darth Rey was a fun vision, rumored to be coming in a Lego set this year.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
In the Dark Millennium Falcon. Very weird. But let's focus on Ben Solo being a good guy. Again, trending upward in the happiness.
What if they... Yeah, I have another one.
Go ahead.
No, let's talk about this. Let's talk about Ben Solo, because mine does involve Ben Solo.
Okay.
So we're just going to... Still in the Ben Solo. What if the roles were reversed?
What if Rey stayed dead and Ben...
No, what if Rey was the Sith?
Why would Rey be a Sith?
Palpatine.
So? My grandpa sells insurance. That doesn't mean I'm going to sell insurance.
Really took my what if and beat it with logic. Don't worry.
I already said I don't want to talk about Rey being evil.
Okay, fine. We won't.
You can talk about it if you want. I'm sorry.
No. Rey can do no wrong.
Rey can do no wrong. Except for when she almost killed Chewie. But
that doesn't count. It
doesn't count.
It was a force fart.
I did once describe that as the equivalent of a force fart. She didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. Wow, I can't wait to have a sequel discussion with you. It's going to be great.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm excited.
We'll go one movie at a time.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other what-ifs that don't involve Rey being evil?
No, do you? I kind of took a fourth there, so did you have
I'll take a fourth. And my last one here will be, what if Sabine kept the Darksaber in Rebels? Clearly, I'm skewing to my favorite.
No, that's
things,
a good question.
Rebels and, I don't know that we would see much different.
I don't think so either. I think Bo-Katan we would not see the splinter group of Mandalorians.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, for right or wrong, they would have followed Sabine because she had the Darksaber. And I think part of Bo-Katan's issues was she was given the Darksaber instead of, when I say issues that people have with her, including other fellow Mandalorians, was she didn't win that. That's not hers, and they know that. So what if Bo-Katan challenged Sabine for the Darksaber?
She probably would have won. Well, because Sabine was technically trained by Kanan, but
Yeah.
I mean, training in Star Wars is a finicky thing where, like, what is training for a whole episode enough?
Yeah.
I don't know, because they were clearly out there in that episode for a while, but I don't know. I have faith in Sabine, and she clearly knows how to use a lightsaber.
I agree.
I mean, I guess if you watch Ahsoka, she's a little rusty at that point, but she had just been trained by Kanan.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a fun throw around. And I guess you could also throw the same logic talking about Sabine didn't technically win it in combat.
Yeah.
She took it from Maul's little weird altar that he had.
Yeah.
Darth Maul's such a weird character.
Such a cool character.
He's cool, but he's so weird.
Yeah.
And you don't get that weirdness in the movies. It's all from the Clone Wars and Rebels. But yeah, any other theories or what ifs you'd like to talk about?
I mean, I could do a whole hour on what ifs.
We could do 4 hours on what ifs.
You can take every decision and say, what if it was the other one?
It's true, but I think these are highlighting some of our favorites and looking at some of our favorite Star Wars is in a new light.
What if Obi-Wan was the one who turned to the dark side?
Stop it with the turn in my favorite characters to the dark side.
I'm not turning... Okay, well, they are unintentionally your favorite characters. I'm talking about normal characters.
The reason I like these characters so much is that they maintain their...
I know.
And
I'm not trying
composure.
I'm not trying to soil your favorite character.
No, it's not. But, like, the reason that I get so feisty about it is, like, the reason that I love them so much is that they're strong enough to resist the pull to that.
What if Obi-Wan and Satine, excuse me,
That is a question that I would love.
stayed together?
Well, you wouldn't have Obi-Wan training Anakin.
But what if Obi-Wan did what Anakin did and did it on the side? They'd both have their little
things going on.
I need a break from training today. Okay. I'm going to Mandalore. Oh,
I think Qui-Gon will be all for it.
Qui-Gon will be like, yes.
This is it.
Let's go. Group break, everybody.
Yeah, no, I think that's really fun.
See y'all on Monday.
Oh my god. But yeah, I think this was really fun. I wish that something like this would happen, or like maybe one thing from every movie was changed or something.
I as much as I want them to do it, I don't think they ever will. Only because
Star Wars internet is insane.
this is canon.
Should have been canon.
It is canon.
It is canon.
Sequels
Disney
don't count.
ruined my life. All that jazz.
The same people who say that love Andor.
It's true. Love The Mandalorian.
Yep.
Dave Filoni saved Star Wars, except for when they don't like what Dave Filoni does,
And then
he
it's
didn't save
Kathleen.
Star Wars.
No, when they don't like what Dave Filoni does, it's Kathleen Kennedy ruined it.
And Disney. And when it's not Kathleen Kennedy, it's Disney.
Yeah.
So, moral of the story: embrace what stories are put in front of you and enjoy them.
Yes, just enjoy it. It's there for our enjoyment.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like everything about it.
No, like we've talked about, Rogue One and Andor necessarily aren't my favorite Star Wars, but I still have things in them that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Oh well. On that note,
Yes.
thank you so much for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Had a good time as always.
Me too. Sorry for the rambling and
Yelling at Dan. I apologize for the yelling at Dan about
it's okay.
Dark Ray and Obi-Wan. You knew what you were doing.
I like to push Joey's buttons. It's fun.
Just like Tech's pushing those buttons. Tech watch.
Oh goodness, he's probably dialing Fee's number.
All right. With that, thank you so much for listening. As always, if you could, please subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice. Follow us on Twitter at Blue Shadow Pod, at Instagram or on Instagram at Blue Shadow Podcast, and feel free to look us up on Facebook and YouTube at Blue Shadow. Our episodes for the podcast are all on video as well. You know, it has a little sound wavy thing.
And one more thing, if you guys have any what ifs, feel free to let us know.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. Maybe I'll put a call out on the Twitters.
We'd love to hear, because kind of like we said, there are so many.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you guys have any, just let us know.
Yeah,
and we'd be happy to talk about it next week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And with that, we will see you next time.